Hello and welcome to our special coverage of the US elections. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Which way will the US presidential election swing on the 5th of November? The answer lies with the voters of 7 swing states. Both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris spent large chunks of their last week campaigning in these states. So which are these battleground states and why are they so crucial? Kiran Khatri takes a look.
Will America get its first woman president, or will Donald Trump secure a second presidency? Most opinion polls point towards a dead heat, which is why a lot is riding on 7 battleground states which haven't historically aligned with any of the two parties and could sway either way. The 7 states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, control 93 electoral college votes. Pennsylvania has the highest at 19, followed by Georgia and North Carolina with 16 each. As per polling averages calculated by ABC News' analytical website 538, neither of the candidates has a decisive lead in any of the states. However, Kamala Harris seems to be doing better than Joe Biden, who was trailing Trump by 5 percentage points in polls earlier this year. Trump has a small lead in Arizona, Georgia, Nevada and North Carolina, while Harris has a slight edge in Wisconsin and Michigan. Remember, the polls have a margin of error, so the numbers could be higher or lower. Let's take a look at how the swing states voted in the previous elections. Pennsylvania, the 5th most populous American state, has seen aggressive campaigning by both candidates. Trump clinched the state in 2016, but Biden showed strength here in 2020.
In the 2020 election, this was won by the Democrats by the razor-thin margin of just 1%, and the margin could well be narrower this time. It's a very, very close call. The Republicans, the Democrats have put everything they've got into winning this state, into winning every vote.
Remember, the state is witness to an enduring image of blood dripping from Trump's ear after a failed assassination attempt in July. Trump believes that if he wins in Pennsylvania, he will win the whole thing. Georgia voted for the Republican candidate from 1992 to 2016 but flipped towards Biden in 2020. He clinched the state with a margin of over 11,700 votes. Harris and former President Barack Obama shared the stage for the first time at a star-studded rally in Georgia's Atlanta, appealing to black voters. Meanwhile, Trump, in his last-minute speech in the state, declared that he is the opposite of a Nazi. Michigan was in Trump's kitty in 2016, but he lost to Biden just 4 years later. In primaries earlier this year, many Michigan Democrats did not back Biden because of his support for Israel's war in Gaza. Harris was heckled by an anti-war protester in a recent rally. Nevada, with 6 electoral votes, has leaned Democratic in every election since 2008, with candidates winning by a slim margin. The state has lagged behind in terms of economic recovery post the pandemic. Both Harris and Trump have promised to turn things around. North Carolina, a state recently ravaged by Hurricane Helene, had last voted for a Democratic president in 2008. Trump clinched the state in 2020 by just 75,000 votes. Joe Biden won Wisconsin in 2020, flipping the state that sided with Trump during his first presidential run. In both 2016 and 2020, polls underestimated the support for Trump. For now, we'll have to stay put and see who will emerge the victor. This is Kiran Khatri for CNBC-TV18.
So if Donald Trump wins, this will be his second term in the White House. That's not all. He will become only the second president in America's history to have lost power and then staged a comeback. Grover Cleveland did the same 132 years ago, fighting the enemy within, carrying out a mass deportation of undocumented migrants, and tariff for a tariff. These have been a few threats from Trump's election campaign. The big question we're asking today is, what are Donald Trump's intentions? To understand more, we are now joined by Michael Wolff, American journalist and author of the best-selling trilogy about Trump's time at the White House, Fire and Fury, Siege and Landslide. Wolff has had a front-row view of Trump's presidency. He has also been a columnist for top publications, including the New York Magazine and The Guardian. Mr. Wolff, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Let me begin by asking you, in 2017, in Fire and Fury, you had written that he never really wanted to win. He never thought he could win. He only wanted to be the most famous man in the world. What do you think when he's fighting for re-election this time? Why does he want to win, and why does he want to be on the ballot?
Well, he wants to win because, for one reason, because that's the way, probably the only way he will stay out of jail. So it's kind of elemental. But the other reason, the broader reason, is that his basic interest is not being the president of the United States. His basic interest is being Donald Trump, the most famous man in the world. And he's kind of boxed himself into a corner. In order to be the Donald Trump that we know, he has to be either the president or running for president. So it's existential for him. Existential because this is the only way he'll stay out of jail is to be in the White House, and the only way he can continue to be the most famous man in the world is if he becomes president.
Right. So primarily he wants to stay out of jail. Tell us about his understanding with Elon Musk, the Tesla CEO. From what we've read, that he is likely to become the chief of the Efficiency Commission in the White House if Trump is elected. Is there an understanding between the two?
Let me interrupt. There is no such thing as an efficiency commission. So that's like, Trump makes a lot of promises to a lot of people, and I think some off the top of his head he came up with this idea of an efficiency commission, which means nothing. I suppose that Elon Musk has an agenda. He wants something. He wants a better business environment for himself, and he sees that as he sees the way to get that through supporting Donald Trump. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, so he may have ambitions beyond that. One of the things that there's a lot of speculation about is that Elon Musk is trying to ultimately elect J.D. Vance, Trump's vice presidential pick, as an ultimate president. So we don't know. He's a rich man. He's given an enormous amount of money to Donald Trump. Obviously, he wants something for it. But the other interesting point about this is that both men, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, see themselves as kind of king of the world. So is there room for two kings of the world? I will tell you that certainly in Donald Trump's White House, there would not be. And I would expect that Elon Musk will depart his love for Donald Trump in tears at some point.
Right. Very interesting. There can't be two kings, king of the worlds in the White House. You had a front row view of Trump's presidency. I would like to ask you, what is currently motivating his strong views on immigration? He said a lot of harsh things, probably harsher than his previous campaigns. What's going for him right now? Who's motivating all of this?
Well, I mean, he's just motivated to win. He's always felt that his issue, his singular issue, the issue that won him the presidency in 2016 was immigration. So he's just continued. Trump always continues to do what has worked for him in the past. Actually, often he continues to do what hasn't worked for him in the past. He just he continues to do more accurately what he has always done, and his political career is built on immigration or baiting the immigration issue, and he is now continuing to do that.
Right. You're someone who has interviewed Trump and so many people who are close to him. What is the real understanding within his family? What's their role in the current election campaign? You were one of the people who recently said nobody's talking about his relationship with Melania Trump right now. Could you give us a sense of the background? What are his terms with the family right now?
Well, I mean, let's start with his wife. Trump has been campaigning for 2 years. His wife's first campaign appearance on his behalf was just the other day, 6 days from the from the election. She has never, in all of his court appearances, she has never once been at his side. It's always been quite unclear where she lives. She's already been saying that if he wins again, that she would be spending most of her time in New York. I mean, I think that there are reasonable questions here. I mean, questions that would be asked of any other politician or candidate, certainly someone who might be the president. What exactly is the nature of the marriage? Are you really married, in fact? Or is it an arrangement? So these questions obviously hang out there. That's called the "Where's Melania" question. As for the other major family relationship, which has been with his daughter, who was in the White House, had a job in the White House during his presidency, and his son-in-law, her husband Jared Kushner, who had a senior-most position in the White House, and they have kept their distance from Trump, never appear with him. Seemed like his wife, you might infer, to be shunning him.
Right. You have also, have you ever in your interviews with Donald Trump understood his relationship with some foreign leaders? Because he's always maintained that he can stop the Ukraine-Russia war within 24 hours if given a chance. Does he have any sort of understanding with Vladimir Putin? Has there ever been some sort of strong foreign interference, foreign support to his campaign?
Well, we don't know that. There have been investigation after investigation, deep investigations into this question. So there's been clearly an enormous amount of suspicion about the nature, the meretricious nature of the Trump-Putin relationship, but we don't know. Trump does this thing of that he likes to imply that there's a relationship, but then, of course, when there's an investigation, he denies there's a relationship. So the idea, this idea that there would be no wars if Donald Trump were president, because other leaders would be afraid to go to war and to affect the interests of the United States if Donald Trump were president, because they don't know what Donald Trump would do, because they suspect he's a crazy man, is part of the Trump the image that he likes to protect. Does it have any substance? Donald Trump is vastly more interested in image than substance.
Right. And finally, very briefly, you said during his last re-election campaign, Sean Hannity of Fox News dictated Trump's election strategy. Is there someone dictating things right now, running the show for him behind the scenes?
No, I didn't. That's inaccurate. I didn't say that that Sean Hannity dictated his election strategy. I said that Sean Hannity was calling up all the time with advice and ideas, and at one point, created an ad for Donald Trump. That ad actually then only ran on Sean Hannity's shows. So more to the point, no one dictates Donald Trump's strategy. Donald Trump is very hard to tell Donald Trump anything. So it's a kind of hit and miss, whose ideas prevail, and ultimately it is all about Donald Trump, as everything is.
It is all about Donald Trump, isn't it? But thank you so much. We got a sense of the mind of Donald Trump as he is trying to get re-elected, and you gave us the reasons for that as well. Thank you very much for joining us, Michael Wolff. On that note, we are slipping into a short break here on our election special, but don't go anywhere. We will be joined by former Indian ambassador to the United States, former Foreign Secretary and former G20 Sherpa Harshvardhan Shringla on the other side to decode why the US election matters for India-US ties. Welcome back. You're watching our special coverage of the US presidential elections. Getting America a better deal on trade has been one of the hallmarks of both the presidential campaigns. How does this augur for India? As per our understanding, if Vice President Kamala Harris were to succeed Biden, she could largely stick to her predecessor's trajectory on trade. However, Trump could act as a disruptor in chief. He has already hit out at India as being a big abuser of trade ties. To decode this further, we're now joined by Harshvardhan Shringla, former Indian Foreign Secretary. Ambassador Shringla, thank you very much for joining us. Do you think the mini trade deal, which we were negotiating so closely in the last year of the first Trump presidency, could be back on the table if he wins?
Absolutely. I think it's logical that the trade deal that we were so close to concluding at the end of Trump's presidency would be back on the table. I think both sides would benefit from even a partial trade deal that would allow a certain amount of goods to go in at low or no duty rates into both countries, and I think that would boost trade, boost confidence, and it would be good for both countries. So that certainly seems to be on the cards if Trump comes back.
Okay. But there has been a lot of momentum in Indo-US ties over the last 4 years. We've seen ISET take off in a big way. We have big ambitions in the Indo-Pacific. Do you think the progress that India and US have made on trade, on semiconductors, on AI and technology and clean energy manufacturing, do you think that could be undone or maybe reviewed if Trump were to win?
I personally don't think so. You see, every presidency adds to that relationship. I mean, after all, the term Indo-Pacific was coined during the Trump presidency. President Biden took it forward. The Quad was revitalized by Trump. He first brought it to the level of foreign ministers. And President Biden then convened the Quad at the level of heads of state and government. So every presidency does its bit to take forward that relationship. And there are certain areas of cooperation which involve India, which I think either side would be happy to work on and develop further. And these include, areas like technology, areas including the ISET, where I think we've made some good progress on very, very critical technologies. And of course, on areas that involve providing a boost to trade investments, the startup and technology sectors. All of these will get a boost irrespective of who's in power in the United States.
Right. And speaking about Kamala Harris's trade policies, from what you know about Kamala Harris and those close to her, how do you think she is going to approach the relationship with India? Trade is a contentious issue in American elections. Do you expect that even under a Kamala Harris presidency, the US could become more inward-looking?
Well, certainly, I mean, the trends suggest that the US will be more protectionist when it comes to their core interest, and especially given the widening trade deficit that they have with many countries, with focus on the economy and the focus on, restoring America's capabilities in manufacturing, in terms of getting the economy moving. The focus of any president will be to try and secure their interests. So we will have to brace for a more protectionist United States. But it's not new. I mean, we have seen it during the Trump presidency. And I'm sure whether it is President Trump or Kamala Harris who becomes president, both would, I think, stress on greater market access in India, greater, I would say, efforts to, collaborate in areas like defense and acquisition of defense items from the United States. These are normal pressures and normal aspects of our relationship. The important thing is what can we get from a relationship, despite the pressures that could be there in terms of both presidents trying to show that they are, looking after number one, which is their own economic interests. Whether we can increase our own ability to have joint ventures, get some manufacturing jointly going, develop joint research and technology interests. These would be very important for both countries. And I think this is an area where even any president that comes in will be able to demonstrate the relationship is working to America's advantage, and from our side to our advantage. So it should be a win-win, and that is how I think it would work, irrespective of Kamala Harris or Trump coming in as president.
Are there enough guardrails for arrangements such as the recent agreement we had on making chips for national security in Jewar in Uttar Pradesh that was a collaboration between the US Space Force and Indian startups. This will be done for the Ministry of Defense in India. For example, the GE-HAL engine deal, for that matter. Do you think there are enough guardrails around that so that despite who is in the White House, these deals don't get impacted?
No, absolutely. I think any defense contract would have to have safeguards built in. I also see that we are threatening to impose a certain amount of punitive actions on GE for not moving fast enough on that contract as per contractual terms. Obviously the contract does provide for certain steps in the absence of performance of contractual terms. And I think any contract should be watertight and should have those elements. Having said that, most of these deals are G to G, that means government to government. And, really will work on the basis of a government wanting to share that technology. Keep in mind that the GE-144 engine is cutting-edge technology. The fact that the United States and India are collaborating on aircraft engineering and aircraft engine manufacturing, I think, and design is a very, very important step forward. And it will certainly require a lot of follow-up and a fair amount of I would say, work on both sides to keep that deal on track. But having said that, I mean, there are safeguards that we can exercise. And I think any retraction would only be, detrimental to the interests of the United States if they decide to, either go close or go slow on that particular agreement. But I don't see that happening because this is really a win-win. And we have a larger strategic interests to go on. We have a much larger vision on that collaboration in the defense sector that would involve both countries, moving in a certain direction. And I don't see either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump resigning on some of those commitments.
Right. Finally, sir, when it comes to the unfinished agenda, both India and US have a common strategic vision. But if there was one big national security priority from an India point of view, what would that be?
I think for us, what is very important is to have access to cutting-edge technologies in the defense sector. With the policy of an Atmanirbhar defense industry, we will need to focus on developing defense manufacturing capabilities, which is why the private sector is coming in, has been asked to come in. There'll be a lot more private sector investment in that area. For that, you will need the United States to not only transfer technology, but be willing to part with some of the cutting-edge technologies that they haven't yet done so. I mean, the GE-144 is an exception. And for that, of course, we need our companies also to be proactive because they need to be within that secure area, which is a zone of comfort for the U.S. Department of Defense. That when they transfer technology to an Indian company, that company has to have the safeguards in place that technology is used for the purposes for which it is contracted, and does not in any way go beyond that, go to others, for example, who might not use it in the way that it is intended. So essentially, we have to make sure that we bring in that ecosystem of trusted partners a number of our top-level companies that can invest in the defense sector, who are then ring-fenced inside a sort of a special area, a zone of confidence, and who have the ability then to make sure that technology transfer is secure. It does not go out of our, let's say, factories or our areas, and that it is used for the purposes for which it has been contracted. I think that is possible, but we need to work on it. There's a lot more work that needs to be done. And I think, as I said, I mean, we are in a good space here, and irrespective of whether it's Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, I think the US presidency and the US administration will move further on areas that are important to both countries in the strategic sector.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Shringla, for joining us on the program. Wishing you a very, very happy Diwali and a great festive season as well. With that, we've come to the end of our program. Thank you very much for joining us. Goodbye.